My name is Audrey Whitfield, 67 years old, recently widowed, and just learning how loneliness changes the sound of a house. After my husband Gil passed, our old home felt like a museum, every room full of memories, every corner reminding me he wasn't coming back. Months later, I finally made a decision Gil always encouraged. Move to Charlotte, buy a small condo, and begin again. I used the life insurance he left in a gift he never mentioned out loud. Quiet care, that was Gil's way. The condo wasn't huge, but it was bright, warm, and safe. I picked out every detail myself. Cream curtains, a soft brown sofa, lavender near the window. I felt proud, like Gil would have smiled and said, "Good job, eh?" I called my only son, Brandon, hoping he'd share my excitement. Instead, his first words landed like cold water. "You spent all of Dad's money." I tried to explain there was plenty left, and it was mine to use. But his tone stayed sharp, almost angry. 3 days later, he called again, sweet this time. Said he wanted to visit with his wife, Tessa, and her parents. Then came the request. "Mom, can you stay in the storage room for a few days? Tessa doesn't want guests thinking you live with us. You know, older folks make places feel small." Something inside me cracked, but I swallowed it. I said, "All right," because mothers say, "all right," even when it breaks them. But when I stepped into that cold concrete basement room, something shifted. I set down my blanket, sat in the old wooden chair, and whispered into the still air, "No one gets to decide my worth. Not anymore." That night, I found an old metal box Gil once hid for important things. Inside were his letters. Letters that revealed Brandon had borrowed thousands from him over the years, making promises he never kept. Gil hadn't told me because he didn't want me hurt. My hands shook as I read, not from fear, but from awakening. I bought a small camera, saved every message, recorded every conversation. I wasn't planning on revenge. I was planning on survival. And just when I thought I'd reached my limit, I picked up the landline in that basement Remand overheard. A conversation I was never meant to hear. Brandon's voice. Tessa's voice. A plan to declare me incompetent, sell my condo, and move me into a cheap nursing home just long enough. My son, my child, plotting my disappearance like paperwork. I set the phone down slowly. My tears didn't fall. Not a single one. Because in that moment, I realized something important. Gil had been right. I was stronger than I ever believed. I didn't know it then. But the basement? The place they tried to bury me was exactly where I would start climbing back to the top of my life. And very soon, everyone at that dinner table would learn the truth. I moved into the storage room the night before Brandon and Tessa arrived. A single bulb buzzed overhead, and the concrete walls felt colder than I expected. I placed a chair in the corner, spread a thin blanket on the floor, and set Gil's photo on a small box. His smile was steady, reassuring, almost like he was telling me not to bend any further. While dusting the wall phone, I heard a faint click. Then voices. Voices I recognized. Brandon? Tessa? They didn't know the basement phone automatically connected to the upstairs line when lifted. "Your mom is easy," Brandon said. "She still thinks this condo belongs to her." Tessa laughed softly. "My parents believe it's worth $6. Keep it that way." Your mom won't question anything. My hand tightened around the receiver. $650. I'd paid $400. Then came the line that made the whole room tilt. When my cousin signs the capacity papers, Brandon said, we declare her mentally unfit. Then guardianship goes to me. We sell the place and put her in a care home for a few months. Older people fade fast there. Tessa's voice was almost a whisper. Brandon, that's cruel. It's practical, he said. She won't fight. She never has. I put the phone down quietly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. But I did not cry. Not this time. I opened my old notebook and wrote one line across the top. Tonight, I stopped being afraid. By morning, I had a plan. For 30 years, I'd been the quiet bookkeeper at an insurance office, precise and impossible to fool on paperwork. I photographed every document, the deed, the bank wire, the tax receipts. I bought a tiny camera and hid it behind a vase. I saved screenshots of Tessa's messages, especially the one where she asked, "Me too, lie about the condo price." Then I called the only person I trusted beyond Gil. Naomi Brooks, my old friend turned attorney, now specializing in elder rights. She didn't ask for details. She just said, Audrey, gather everything. I'll be in Charlotte tomorrow morning, and whatever you do, don't confront them yet. The next evening, Brandon knocked on the basement door. Mom, is the room ready? Don't embarrass us this weekend. I looked at him really. This wasn't the little boy who once held my hand crossing the street. This was a man who'd learned how to take without guilt. Yes, I said quietly, fingers touching the recorder in my pocket. He smirked and left. When the door closed, I whispered to Gil's picture. They think I'm at the bottom of this house. But this is where I start climbing back up. And 3 days later, at a dinner, they thought I'd serve quietly. The real truth would get its chance to speak louder than any of them expected. The evening of the dinner arrived with a kind of quiet that felt too calm. Brandon and Tessa were dressed like hosts of a fancy event instead of guests in a home they did not own. Tessa's parents arrived first, confident people who viewed everything as a price tag. Behind them came two couples who seemed equally impressed with themselves. Tessa opened her arms wide. Welcome to our new condo. Isn't it beautiful? I was in the kitchen, stirring sauce and trying not to show how my hands trembled. The smell of roasted chicken filled the room, but all I could taste was dread. I watched their reflections in the oven door, Brandon laughing loudly, Tessa showing the guests around with pride she had not earned. They pointed to the chandelier I paid for, the furniture I chose, the balcony I stood on when I first whispered, I can start again. But none of that mattered to them. To them, this was a stage. When everyone sat around the large dining table, Brandon raised his glass. Thank you all for coming. This condo is a milestone for us. Mom helped a little, even though her memory isn't what it used to be. Soft, pitying laughter followed. My face stayed calm, but inside, I felt something finally break free. Tessa added, with a gentle tone dripping with fake concern. Mom gets confused sometimes. But this area is close to the hospital, so it's convenient for her. My fingers tightened around the serving platter. Enough. I stepped forward and set a blue folder on the table. May I clear up a misunderstanding? Brandon shifted. Mom, not now. I opened the folder. This is the original purchase agreement. I bought this condo. The price was $400,000. Here are the tax records. wire receipts, and appraisal. The room went still. Tessa's smile collapsed. Her father leaned closer, reading every line. "And," I said, pulling out a small USB, "this is a recording. It contains Brandon and Tessa discussing a plan to declare me mentally incompetent, take guardianship of my property, and sell this condo." Someone at the table gasped. Brandon lunged forward. "That's a lie." I pressed play. His voice filled the room, clear, undeniable. "We put her in a care home, sell the condo, split the money. Old people decline fast." Every laugh from earlier drained out of the room, like someone had pulled the air away. Tessa's father's face hardened with the kind of disappointment that carried real weight. "If this is real," he said, "you too have broken more than trust. You've broken the law." Brandon stood, fists shaking. "You're doing this to ruin me?" "No," I said softly. "I'm doing this to protect myself." The dinner ended with doors slamming, voices rising, and the truth standing taller than the lies. But what happened after they left proved just how dangerous desperation can become. The guests left in a hurry, some whispering in shock, others avoiding eye contact altogether. Brandon and Tessa stayed behind, pacing the living room like cornered animals, their confidence drained away. "You humiliated us," Tessa snapped. "No," I replied calmly. "You humiliated yourselves." Brandon pointed a shaking finger at me. "You think you can turn everyone against us? Mom, you're destroying your own family." My voice stayed steady. Families aren't destroyed by truth. They're destroyed by the people who choose to lie. Tessa tried a softer approach. "We only wanted to help. You're getting older. We were planning for your future." I looked straight at her. "You were planning for my money." Silence. Sharp. Exposed. A knock broke through the tension. Naomi, my attorney and longtime friend, stepped inside, carrying a briefcase and a level of confidence neither of them expected. "Evening," she said, glancing at Brandon. "Audrey, I have everything ready." Brandon's face twisted. "You called a lawyer. For your own son." "I called a lawyer for myself," I said. Naomi opened her folder. Due to the recorded evidence, the attempted fraud, and the guardianship plot, Audrey has filed for a restraining order and financial protection. Additionally, Brandon and Tessa are forbidden from accessing this property, her accounts, or her medical information. Tessa gasped. "You're kicking us out." Naomi didn't flinch. "Yes, effective tonight." Brandon lunged toward me, anger exploding across his face, but Naomi stepped forward, firm and unshaken. "Take one more step," she warned, "and your next stop is jail." He froze. Tessa grabbed his arm. "Brandon, let's go." They left with nothing but fury and the echo of their failed plan behind them. For the first time in years, the condo felt peaceful. I spent the next months rebuilding my routines. I joined a seniors art class. I hosted neighbors for small dinners. I walked the quiet streets each evening with a sense of freedom I hadn't felt since before Gil got sick. Naomi helped me set up legal protections no one could ever attempt. Guardianship or financial access, again, without court approval. Every paper was sealed like armor around my life. Then one Sunday afternoon, Brandon showed up outside the building. He didn't ask to come in. He just stood near the parking lot, hands in his pockets. older in the face than I remembered. "Mom," he called out quietly, "I'm sorry." I believed the word, but I also knew sorry didn't erase what he tried to do. I walked closer but stopped several feet away. "Brandon," I said softly, "I forgive you." But forgiveness doesn't mean reopening a door you tried to break. His eyes filled with something between regret and understanding. He nodded, then walked away. I watched him go, not with anger, not with relief, but with acceptance. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. Some end with peace. Mine ended with choosing myself. Because sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is save her own life. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people remember. No matter how old you are, it's never too late to stand up for yourself.